Mattaponi Indian Tribe and Reservation. This is the last remnant of one of the 32 tribes once ruled by the great chief Powhatan. The Mattaponi tribe was one of the last to sign the Treaty of Peace. The Mattaponi Reservation was confirmed in 1658 by an act of the Grand Assembly. Colonial Laws, pages 48 and 50. The Mattaponi tribe has always kept the statutes of the great chief and is governed by its own chief and council and makes its own laws. In 1914, Chief Tecumseh, Chief George F. Costello, to 1944, Assistant Chief Haskanawanaha O.T. Costello was the active chief in 1944 to 1949, and then he was re-elected and passed away in 1969.
It's been a struggle teaching the state of Virginia and the departments in the state on how they must treat us, or even look at us. And I ask that question almost every panel I talk on. You know, I know what sovereignty means to me, but what does it mean to the people that are listening or that's making rules that govern us? Too bad it's just not a plain and simple explanation of what a sovereign tribe means to people.
You know, you think of sovereignty as being a sovereign country, but is that truly what sovereignty means? Does it mean you're a community? Does it mean you have a place in Virginia that is yours? So sovereignty might have other meanings. I think tribes begin to think of it as having their own space where we existed through time. That's our sovereign space. So sovereignty can have many meanings.
The idea of sovereignty, that's a tough subject. There's no native tribe in America that has the sovereignty as the dictionary would define it. And so that's a little complicated for state agencies to understand, and they're working. What we've been seeing the last few years is they're trying the best they can. They could probably do better, but all I can say is it does seem that the state is trying to figure this out themselves, and we're here to help them figure that out if they need any advice.
When you look at the history of the eastern United States Indians versus the western United States Indians, I look back in the history books and I read about the Trail of Tears, about when all of those tribal citizens from various tribes on the eastern part of the United States marched across the United States, and a lot of them died along the way, and they were all marched west, primarily to Oklahoma first, and then further west because that land was taken, and then that was taken, and so on. And so all of the western tribal Indian tribes ended up on the lands that they were pushed upon. And most of the lands that they were pushed upon was the lands that were not very useful lands, and they had to really scrap a living out of them. And the eastern Indians from the eastern part of the United States, they pretty much had to go inland and hide, literally hide from those people that would actually have rounded them up and shoved them west, or worse yet, kill them. And I think about that, and I think for so long our ancestors were really treated as less than people, in a sense. And to get federal recognition, it somehow kind of like evens the playing field, so to speak.
Well, what we have today is a far cry from what we had in the 1677 treaty. Let me just say that, which was an international treaty as a part of international treaty law. So that made us actually separate and apart from the state of Virginia or the United States. And even when Chief George was going to Congress to ask for our civil and sovereign rights in the 20s, he wasn't granted it by Congress, and he got mad. And he came home, and he gathered the tribe and decided that we were going to relinquish our citizenship, which we got in 24, from the United States, because they wouldn't provide for our civil and sovereign rights. And so I think it was some of the white judges that he had worked with and attorneys, because he was well connected, and a lot of the with judges and attorneys in the area, as well as the Indian Rights Association in Philadelphia, and Dr. Speck as well. They were afraid that the state of Virginia would eradicate the tribe. Fear of reprisals, they said, against the tribe if they would do such a thing. And so he decided better to protect his people than to rise up against the United States. But he was very sure and very confident that he didn't need citizenship from the United States to continue to be the tribe that we had always been.
Well, with state recognition, you have the state supporting me, and that's probably the easiest way to say it. And the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, recognizes the chief, the council, and this as a reservation. And with state recognized, we still hold to the treaties that was in the past. We have an annual Thanksgiving traditional treaty that we offer to the governor that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And we have a good relationship with the state officials. From a federal recognition standpoint, it helps support the citizens of the Mattaponi, where we could have continuous support from a federal way that supports the children, the elderly, the educational opportunities.
Us changing how we operated to a certain extent, more as a business, a government, versus a tribal community. A lot of red tape, navigating, trying to go through all the bureaucracy, understanding grants, and all the minutia that goes with that. So it's really been a learning experience in how we operate as a community, and educating our folks to understand that there is a lot of red tape that we have to go through, unfortunately.
You're certainly right when you say it means different things to different people. To us, to me, as chief of the tribe, it means we are individual government within this government, and we should be treated as equally as if another county or city.
From what I understand, in the late 70s, we had a tribal citizen move back on the reservation. And one of the things he asked about was how much rent we were getting from the railroad that runs through. And he was, none. That was the answer. So we investigated, and basically the railroad had been built in the mid-1800s. Nobody really asked permission, and we weren't getting rent. So we sued. We ended up settling out of court. We were working with Native American Rights Fund at the time. Settled out of court, but one thing that happened is that settlement had to be ratified by the U.S. Congress. But that ratification specifically stated that in no way was this meant to serve as recognition of the tribe. So it seemed that that was the impetus. Okay, Congress had to ratify it, but they won't recognize us. So it was about that time frame that we started looking at recognition, but I always liken it to a locomotive taking off out of a train. So when we hear how long it took, those first decade or more, there wasn't a whole lot of work done. We're moving slowly and such. And it wasn't until this century that things really started moving quicker.
Finally, our government will say that you're just as important as the other citizens in this country. That means a lot, to be able to say that your government says you matter. And it took a lot of years for it to happen.
Well, sovereign nation has a lot to do with us remaining with our traditional habits and our traditional ways of life. You know, of course, we have some traditional and we have some updated things that we've done here within the reservation and trying to catch up to speed on, you know, one thing.
Federally recognized tribes. So we have been teaching them how they're supposed to handle it, and we're suggesting that, you know, call some of those states out west and see how they're treating the tribes, because we need this language change to include us as sovereign people.